My stepdaughter, Lucy, turned me down at her wedding and decided to choose her biological father, Daniel, to walk her down the aisle. But when it came time to pay for the wedding, I disappeared into silence. I married my wife, Clara, almost 20 years ago. She is a strong, passionate woman with a complicated past. When we met, she was raising a young daughter named Lucy. Lucy has long brown hair and piercing dark eyes, always curious and full of energy. She can enliven a space with her innocent questions and bright smiles. I remember the first time I saw Lucy chasing a paper airplane in the park. She ran as fast as she could, holding her mother's hand tighter as they walked toward me. In that moment, I felt something powerful, a connection I had never felt before. Clara has been upfront about her past since we first started. Lucy's biological father, Daniel, has always been an unreliable man who only shows up when it suits him. He never keeps his promises, and cheap gifts become a substitute for real affection. Lucy is always excited when Daniel comes, but Clara has taught her not to put too much hope in promises he never keeps. As Clara and I got more serious, she always made it clear that Lucy was her number one priority, and I, without hesitation, accepted that. What I didn't expect was that I loved her so deeply. Every time Lucy said, "I love you, Daddy," and gave me a drawing with the word Daddy misspelled, I felt my heart soften. I was there for Lucy's big moments, when she learned to ride a bike, when she was sick and needed my comfort, and when she stood on stage for her first performance. In those moments when Lucy looked for me in the crowd, I realized that I had become an indispensable part of her life. As for Daniel, he remained a shadow in our lives. He called occasionally, but was always absent at important moments. Lucy, though fond of him, learned not to expect promises from him. As Lucy grew older, my relationship with her grew stronger. I was the one who went to parent-teacher conferences, helped her pick out her graduation dress, and cheered her on at sports games. Even though I wasn't her biological father, I knew I was an integral part of her life. I always knew I would be there for my daughter's big day. When Lucy went to college, I supported her without hesitation. I paid most of her tuition, bought her books, and covered the rent for her small apartment. It was a financial sacrifice, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to have the opportunities I never had. Daniel, as usual, was inconsistent. Sometimes he'd call to say, "I'm proud of you," but he never contributed a cent or played an active role in her life. When Lucy graduated, she ran to me after the ceremony, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for everything. I couldn't have done it without you." At that moment, every sacrifice was worth it. And when Lucy announced that she was marrying Andrian, I envisioned the moment I would walk her down the aisle, a moment I had been waiting for all these years. But things didn't turn out the way I had imagined. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I did everything I could to help her prepare. I contributed to the wedding expenses, bought the wedding dress, and paid for any incidentals. However, when I received the wedding invitations, I couldn't find my name anywhere on the important list. To make matters worse, Lucy chose Daniel, her biological father, to walk her down the aisle. When I asked her about this decision, Lucy's answer was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. "There is only one biological father, and I want to spend this moment with him." Those words echoed in my head like an unacceptable cruelty. All the years of love, sacrifice, and effort I had put in, all disappeared in a cold moment. Her wedding day was one of the most painful days of my life. As I sat silently in the crowd, watching Daniel lead her away, my heart shattered. The sacrifices, the love, and the care I had for my daughter seemed worthless. As their lives moved on, I seemed to have become a forgotten part of them. But when Lucy returned from her honeymoon, I had no idea that her next words would change everything once again. The moment I saw Lucy walking away with Daniel, I felt a lump in my throat. She was smiling like any bride, but for me, it was a painful sight. Not because I didn't wish her happiness, but because in that moment, I realized that, to her, I was just a part of the past, easily replaced. The week after the wedding, Lucy and Adrian honeymooned at a luxury resort in the Caribbean, a place with white sand beaches and beautiful scenery. I didn't ask any more questions. I couldn't bring myself to participate in the stories of what had ended, what had broken our relationship. What I didn't expect was what happened when Lucy got back. She had just finished unpacking when she called me. Her voice was soft, as if nothing had happened. She told me about the days at the beach, about the romantic dinner Adrian had prepared under the stars. I just listened quietly, answering briefly, trying to keep my cool. Then the conversation took a turn I should have expected. "Dad," she said, the word stabbed me in the heart. "I need to ask you a favor." There had been some unexpected expenses on the honeymoon, and they were a little short on cash. She asked if I could help. There was a moment of silence. The way she asked, so soft, so sure, it was as if she knew I would say yes, as I always did. I was the fixer, the provider, the sacrificer, but this time, something inside me couldn't accept it. Maybe it was my wounded pride, or maybe it was the feeling of being left out for so long. All I knew was that, for once, I didn't feel obligated to say yes. "I'm sorry, Lucy," I said, trying to keep my voice even despite my pounding heart. "I can't help you this time." Silence. I could see the shock on her face. "But you've always helped me," she said, her voice hesitant and skeptical. I took a deep breath. Maybe I should ask Daniel. He's your biological father, right? Maybe he can help. Another long silence, then a soft, "I understand," a breath of fresh air. And she hung up. No argument, no anger, just an abrupt end, leaving a deep void inside me. Clara came to me soon after. She criticized me, saying I couldn't abandon Lucy when she needed help the most. I told her, "It's not about money. It's about respect. I've been there for her for over 20 years, Lucy, and when she had the chance to acknowledge it, she chose to act like I'd never done anything for her. I can't keep being her backup plan when things go wrong." Clara doesn't understand. For Lucy, blood comes first, even if that blood only makes empty promises. The conversation ended in silence, but something had changed between us. An invisible wall had been erected where there had been none before. Lucy hadn't contacted me since that call. Clara said Adrian was angry with me for abandoning Lucy when she was in trouble. I heard that Daniel had, unsurprisingly, disappeared. No calls, no texts, nothing. Maybe Lucy had finally realized the truth. But that didn't change what she had done, and it didn't erase the way she had made me feel. That night, alone in the living room, I thought about every moment Lucy and I had shared, every time she had laughed and called me Dad. The word had felt like a sign of love, a recognition that I could stand in her life. But now I wondered, was it just a convenient form of address to Lucy, something she used when she needed it? I didn't know if I could get over it. But one thing was certain. This time I wasn't the one who always gave. In truth, I felt like I had nothing left to give. Update. 3 months have passed since Lucy's wedding, and despite my best efforts to keep my distance, trouble keeps coming. Clara keeps trying to mend my relationship with Lucy, her eyes full of disappointment and longing, as if waiting for me to soften and return to being the man who never said no. But what she doesn't understand, or doesn't want to accept, is that I've changed since that day. I can't live like I used to. Since the phone call where I refused to pay for Lucy's honeymoon, our relationship has been completely blurred. She has stopped contacting me, and although I was hurt at first, I now feel relieved. There are no more fake inquiries and requests for money. What surprised me was how quickly the problems in Lucy's marriage had developed. Of course, Clara had kept in regular contact with Lucy, and one night she mentioned it over dinner. Lucy and Adrian are having financial trouble, Clara sighed, her voice thick with meaning. Adrian lost his job, and now they can't pay the rent. I continued eating, feeling like this had all been foretold. Clara continued, "Don't you think you should help them? She is your daughter, after all." I put down my fork and took a deep breath. "You're not her father anymore, Clara. According to Lucy, Daniel is. If she needs help, she should go to Daniel." Clara looked at me as if I had said something unforgivable. "How can you be so heartless? She's always trusted you. You can't abandon her like this." I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Insensitive? It was what he did to you at the wedding that was insensitive. It was as if you had never given your life to him. If Daniel was a father in the big moments, he should be a father in these difficult times. The conversation ended. Clara stood up angrily and took the dishes to the sink. That night, we slept in silence, back to back. I was devastated by what was happening to my relationship with Clara, but I couldn't keep giving and receiving. It didn't take long, though, for Lucy to reach out to me. Not directly. A week later, I received a text message from Adrian, Lucy's husband. It was brief, but desperate. "Hi, this is Adrian, Lily's husband. Need to talk to you about something important. Do you have a moment?" I didn't respond right away. I let the message sit, a reminder of the profound change in my life. I read the message over and over again, already knowing what he wanted. Money. Always money. Finally, I decided to meet him. I had nothing to lose. We met at a small coffee shop. Adrian arrived first, tapping his foot, staring anxiously at his untouched coffee. I sat down, without saying a word, waiting for him to speak first. "Thanks for coming," he finally said, but his voice lacked sincerity. It sounded more like an obligation than genuine gratitude. "I know things have been tough between you and Lucy, but we're having a hard time and thought you might be able to help." I stayed silent, keeping my face impassive. "What do you need?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Adrian sighed, still staring at his coffee as if searching for the right words. "Lucy and I have been struggling financially since our honeymoon. I lost my job, and now we can't pay the rent. If we don't pay in 2 weeks, we'll be evicted." I nodded slowly, letting the words sink in, then asked the question Adrian clearly hadn't expected. "Have you asked Daniel?" Adrian looked up, bewildered. "Daniel? Number we haven't talked to him. Lucy thought you could help. You've always been there for her." I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was bitter, sarcastic. "Exactly," I said, leaning forward. "And yet when she had to choose, she chose Daniel. So no, Adrian, I won't help this time. Maybe it's time for Daniel to step up for once in his life." Adrian tried to argue, saying it wouldn't be fair if they were fired, that it wasn't just about Lucy, but about him as well. I held up my hand. "This conversation is over," I said firmly. "I wish you both well, but I can't keep solving your problems." I stood up, leaving him alone with his cold coffee and his disappointment. When I got home, Clara was waiting for me, as if she knew what had happened. I didn't go into details. She didn't need to. She could tell I had refused to help. Lucy and Adrian haven't been in touch since. Clara is still angry, though she stopped pressuring me to give in. But my gut tells me this isn't over. When a castle collapses, there are always some pieces that haven't fallen yet. Update. It's been 6 months since the wedding, and honestly, those months have felt strangely liberating. I remained steadfast in my decision to stay out of Lucy and Adrian's affairs, even though it meant facing Clara's constant anger. She didn't say it, but I could see it in her eyes. She still hasn't forgiven me for what she considered a betrayal. No matter how many times I explained that it wasn't about money, it was about respect. She either didn't understand, or she was pretending not to understand. But the distance between me and Lucy brought an unexpected relief. For the first time in years, I was free from the burden of having to be the one to hold everything together. I started focusing on myself, rediscovering old hobbies like woodworking, spending more time with friends, things I had neglected for so long. At first, I felt guilty for taking this space for myself, but now I see it as necessary. The trouble didn't stop there, though. A few weeks ago, Clara told me that Lucy and Adrian had finally been evicted. They couldn't make the rent, and their landlord was running out of patience. They were now living with Adrian's mother in a cramped apartment that was barely big enough for 2 people, let alone a couple. I didn't bother to respond, because there was no point in saying anything. In Clara's eyes, I was always the bad guy whenever Lucy got into trouble. What she didn't understand was that, deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. Lucy had chosen to push me aside, and now she was living with the consequences of those choices. Ironically, according to Clara, Daniel had been completely absent from all of this. He hadn't even responded when Lucy called for help. That wasn't surprising. He'd been irresponsible all his life. But I found it ironic that after all the effort Lucy had put into putting him up there in the sky, now, when she really needed him, he was nowhere to be found. A few days ago, while Clara was cooking dinner, she told me something that almost made me laugh. Lucy said Daniel had promised to help her find a new place to live, but he hadn't done so yet. He said he was waiting for his finances to stabilize. I raised my eyebrows, looking at her skeptically. And Lucy still believes him? After a lifetime of empty promises, she still believes him? I asked, not out of anger, but out of genuine curiosity. Clara sighed, looking at me sadly. He's still his biological father, after all, she said simply, as if that explained everything. That conversation haunted me for years. I had tried to fill the void Daniel left in Lucy's life, but now I wondered, was it all for naught? Maybe, for Lucy, blood was always more important than action. Maybe I never had to compete with Daniel's presence, but with the simple fact that he existed. A week ago, Lucy finally contacted me. Surprisingly, this time it wasn't to ask for money. She sent a message, saying she wanted to meet, to talk. I hesitated for a long time before replying, but in the end, curiosity won out. We met at a public park in Boston where she used to go as a child. She was already there, sitting on a bench, fidgeting with her hands. When I approached, she stood up and gave me a hug, reluctant and insincere, but I accepted it out of politeness. We sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. Then Lucy began to talk, but not about why she had called me. Instead, she talked about how difficult it was living with Adrian's mother, about the stress of her marriage, and how much she missed having her own space. I listened, not interrupting. I knew she needed to vent. Finally, she got to the point. "Dad," she said, a word that had meant so much to me, but now sounded hollow. I know I let you down. I know that wedding hurt you, and maybe by the time you realize it, it's too late. I waited silently for her to continue. I was filled with mixed emotions, shock, sadness, and a lingering resentment. Lucy took a deep breath and added, I just want to say that I'm sorry it happened. I never meant to make you feel replaced. But you did, I replied calmly but firmly. Not just at the wedding, Lucy. Every time you ignored everything I ever did for you. Every time you chose to see Daniel as someone he never was. You say you don't want me to feel replaced, but honestly, I don't think I was ever meant to be in that position in the first place. Lucy bowed her head, her face full of disappointment. Perhaps she thought I would forgive her so easily and we could go back to the way things were. But that couldn't be. It couldn't be. There were things that were broken that couldn't be fixed. The conversation ended quickly. As we said goodbye, Lucy said she hoped that over time we could rebuild our relationship. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure that was possible anymore. Lucy didn't just break my heart. She broke something deeper, my trust in her. Update. I did something that neither Clara nor Lucy will ever forgive. And to be honest, I'm not sure I deserve forgiveness. Over the past year since our wedding, Clara and I have broken down in ways I never could have imagined. What was an emotional gap has become an unbridgeable chasm. The love, the connection, even the respect we once had are now just a fading memory. We still live under the same roof, but we no longer live the same life. After the wedding, there was no intimacy between us. At first, I thought it was just a temporary phase due to the stress of the wedding. But as time went on, I realized that Clara wasn't just angry, she was resentful. She blamed me for what Lucy had endured, and that resentment slowly ate away at our relationship. The nights we used to spend together talking or watching movies turned into empty nights. Every time I tried to get close, Clara withdrew, building an invisible wall between us. And in that gap, someone else came into my life, Kimmy's best friend Clara. She was always there, Lucy's fun aunt, always bringing expensive gifts and telling funny stories. But after the wedding, something changed. Kimmy started calling me more often, checking in on me regularly. At first, I thought she just wanted to help Sarah and me mend our relationship. But gradually, I realized that it was more than that. Kimmy was the only person who really listened to me. She said the things that no one else dared to say, that I was right, that my feelings were valid, that I was being treated unfairly, that Clara had been unfair to me. Conversations with Kimmy gradually became something I looked forward to every day. She didn't see me as the villain in this story. I won't say it was all planned, because it wasn't. It just happened, like water finding a new path. One night, after a long conversation, we sat across from each other in silence. We talked about everything, about how I felt invisible in my own home, about Clara's growing coldness, and about how my life was falling apart. Then, suddenly, Kimmy grabbed my hand and said something that left me speechless. You deserve to be happy, and they won't let you. I don't know what made me lean into her. Maybe it was her voice, her eyes. But right then, I kissed her, and she didn't pull away. I didn't go home that night. I stayed with Kimmy. We talked, laughed, and let the emotions that had been bottled up for months finally come free. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, wanted, and most importantly, understood. I knew what I had done was wrong, but I had no regrets. Kimmy was my escape, the only person who truly saw me. I found in her what I had lost in Clara: connection. Clara suspected something. She noticed when I came home late or went out to answer messages, but she never confronted me. Kimmy was also racked with guilt, but neither of us had any regrets. I knew this couldn't last. When Clara found out, things wouldn't be the same again. But now, I don't feel alone. Final update. It's been 2 years. Looking back, it all seems like a distant storm, but the scars are still there. I've rebuilt my life, though I'm not sure I can undo the damage I did. Clara and Lucy have cut me out of their lives completely. In a way, they've freed me. Finally, I confessed, and Clara's reaction was more intense than I had imagined. She faced me before I could say anything. What is this? I've seen how you've changed. Tell me the truth. I blurted out, Kimmy and I, we've been seeing each other. She's the only one who's been there for me when no one else has. Clara's face went from shock to anger. Then the words that still haunt me rang out. So all of this, everything we've built, means nothing to you? I stood there speechless. Everything I did was to keep this family together, and I failed. Clara, my voice trembled. While you were trying to save Lucy, I lost myself. And you don't even realize it, she cried out, her voice filled with pain. What you did was unforgivable. How could you destroy this family? Lucy stepped in. She knew. Her voice was cold as ice. I thought you were better than that, but you never cared, did you? You just wanted to be a hero, and look at what you did. That's not true. I shuddered. I pushed you away. I chose Daniel, and when I needed something, you were just a fixer. But when you gave me everything, it was never enough. Was it? Not enough, Clara shouted. But that doesn't justify this betrayal. Then they told me I had to leave. No more contact. I was hurt, but also relieved. There was nothing left to save. I moved into a small apartment. The divorce process was exhausting, but the real pain wasn't the legal paperwork. It was the fact that the life I had built was falling apart. Throughout it all, Kimmy was there. She was my comfort, my strength. She didn't excuse my mistakes, but she didn't judge me either. Months later, as I was slowly putting the pieces of my broken life back together, I received a text from Lucy. Dad, I know I hurt you. I know I failed, but you'll always be my dad. I'm sorry. I know things will never be the same, but I will always love you. I didn't answer right away. The wound was too deep. Maybe one day I'll find peace. But for now, I have to keep moving forward, regardless of what I left behind.